This is Cast of Wonders, the young adult fiction podcast featuring stories of the fantastic. Welcome, episode 489. I'm Catherine Inskip, your editor and host. Our story for today is My Hilt Itches by Sydney Rivers, a Cast of Wonders original. Sydney Rivers is a first-time published author, loosely based betwixt the realms of imagination and practicality. Balancing on the rift of scholastic insanity, she does her best to write when not battling her way through college assignments. Her free time is frequently spent reading, walking her dog, or watching Bollywood films. This story is narrated by Rish Outfield. Rish Outfield can be found regularly at the Dune Steve podcast, which he produces with Big Anklovich, and you can hear him pretty much everywhere in the genre story podosphere. You can also find him online. And now, we've a tale to tell.
My Hilt Itches by Sydney River. Narrated by Rish Outfield. "Innkeeper, another round!" roared the hero. Cheers of approval came from the other men at his table, dressed in pungent furs and armor. They paired copious drinking with heaped plates of roast meat. That and the body odor was enough to make me queasy. Of course, it didn't help that I was strapped against the hero's back. My jeweled sheath did little to protect me from the nauseating sounds and smells emanating from him. Regardless of his company, the hero always ate the most, always drank the most. How I would love to teach him the meaning of moderation with some choice insults and a good knock on the head. "Show us Excalibur!" yelled one of the self-professed warriors, quickly echoed by the shouts of his peers. Standing upon the table, the hero yanked me out of my cozy covering. I was held high, displayed for the entire inn's enjoyment. I was really getting tired of his perpetual bragging. Of course, I was not actually the famous Excalibur, just a cheap knockoff designed in its most excellent likeness. But I say cheap in the most relative way possible. Excalibur was priceless, but the hero had had to pay a dragon's ransom to the witch who forged me. I was a superb weapon, after all. A superb weapon with one teensy-weensy extra detail that the witch had failed to mention to the hero when he purchased me. She had a bad habit of endowing her creations with personalities. A foible, perhaps, but she did get lonely. Truth be told, I think she was glad to be rid of me. I got the impression that I was a bit too sarcastic for her liking. Well, it's not like she was the one who made me that way. The hero was still reveling in his undeserved attention, telling anyone who listened how he had won Excalibur in fair combat, defending his life against 20 marauders and a dragon. The fiction, and his fame, grew a little bigger with each retelling. I wondered if he would ever grow tired of the constant notice, jealousy, and adoration. Unlikely. One other thing. The hero snores. His breath seemed to rattle the very walls that enclosed us. If I had had ears, I would have stuffed cotton in them, or maybe I would have stuffed something sharper into him. There were 2 beds in the room the hero rented for the night. While he lay snoozing in one, the other remained empty. It was meant for his servant, who was busily polishing my already gleaming metal. Although the hero was not a knight, as if he had the skill and determination, he still generously called the boy his squire. Besides keeping me in good condition, the boy's job was to carry the hero's equipment, groom his horse, do his errands, help him dress, shine his shoes, hold his hanky, comb his hair, brush his teeth, wipe his arse. The boy talked to me sometimes when his master was asleep, or if we were otherwise alone, sharing improbable tales he'd heard and his equally improbable dreams for the future. That's how I knew his name to be David. The hero only ever called him either boy or squire. Tonight, however, he was quiet. That was normal when David was tired, for we had spent the day traveling. The hero had to travel often. He knew how to use a sword, to an extent, and would make his money slaying relatively easy foes. But if he stayed in one place for too long, either the money would run out, or he would one day be called upon to fight something worthy of Excalibur's distinguished history. While I had an easy ride upon the hero's back, David enjoyed no such luxury. Before too long, my upkeep was finished for the night, and the boy fell into bed for some well-deserved sleep. As for me, I lulled myself into a pleasant rest, which ended in me lackadaisically singing, "Put the lime in the coconut, you knave," in the wee hours of the morning, accompanied by the incessant roar of the hero's snores. "You fool!" shouted the hero. I sighed, as if this problem was anyone's fault but his. The hero had been in such a rush to find a new monster to defeat, he'd hurried David to the point that he was bound to miss something. When David had packed up his master's belongings before leaving the inn, he'd somehow overlooked a small dagger made by the same witch who created me. The weapon would always hit its target, no matter the incompetence of the thrower, and was just what the hero needed in this situation. I was not saddened by the dagger's absence. It was one nasty piece of work. We had stumbled upon, tracked an ogre outside of its cave. Defeating an ogre sounds rather impressive, doesn't it? Ha, ha, ha. Wrong, my friend. Ogres, while incredibly ugly, are only slightly larger than your average human. They have long claws, sharp teeth, and mainly subsist on a diet of small mammals and roots. The only reason to slay an ogre is their significant affinity for treasure and surprising resourcefulness when it comes to stealing it. Gee, I wonder what the hero was looking for. I was raised into the air, preparing for the ogre's running attack. It dodged my strike as the hero tried to land a solid blow. The ogre gibbered at us, looking for an opening. Its claws were 7 inches long and strong as the flat of my blade. Yes, a good dagger throw would have been extremely useful about now. David was standing on the sidelines, near the edge of some woodland. As the ogre moved around, it spotted him and saw that he was unarmed. It rushed forward, away from my deadly sharp edge. The hero's counterattack was short-lived. As soon as he realized the creature was retreating, leaving its treasure exposed, he lowered my blade and turned towards the cave. The ogre approached David swiftly. It may have been trying to escape, but the hero's attack had enraged it. It would likely have a go at dispatching at least one enemy, and ogres were fast. David began to dance. He broke into a sprightly jig, kicking his feet high into the air, hands on his hips. That's when I remembered the story. David had heard on our travels that, for a reason no one could fathom, ogres despised the sight of dancing. The more vigorous the movements, the better. I hadn't believed a word of it. Strangely enough, this idea had come into his head before the thought of running away. The ogre stopped. It made an expression that, if possible, made its face even more grotesque than usual. With loud, gibbering noises, the creature dashed back to its cave. It cut in front of the hero, who had not yet reached the cavern's threshold. Jumping inside, the ogre cascaded small boulders over the cave's opening. The rocks, which had rested in a net of webbing attached to a release cord, now completely blocked the only access. The opening had already been so small, a person of average size could only crawl through it. Classic ogre's trick. The hero roared in anger. He had lost his treasure, which would have bought new armor and many rounds of ale. He strode over to the boy and, thwack, hit him with the back of a gloved hand. David was left on the floor, rubbing his head, as the hero stomped off towards his horse. He had tears in his eyes. I was incensed. The damned chicken was overcooked. At least that's what the hero kept insisting. We had reached another village, several hours after the ordeal with the ogre. He had immediately sent David upstairs to clean his entire suit of armor and then sat down for a meal. The hero's reputation had already spread to this area. The inn therefore tolerated him, despite his persistent nagging, whining, and grumbling. The hero was in a bad mood. Obviously the room was too small. The ale was watered down, and the cook had no idea how to prepare either meat or vegetables. I was unfortunately still attached to the cursed hero. Why he could not unstrap me and let David take me upstairs, I had no idea. Perhaps he thought brandishing Excalibur around would nourish his poor bruised ego. The innkeeper burst through the front doors as the hero took a bite out of a still steaming potato. He was pale and sweaty. His hands were shaking. The man hurried over to the center of the inn, everyone's eyes upon him. Climbing up onto a table, he waved his hands for quiet and attention. "A dragon has invaded the mountainsides!" shouted the innkeeper, eager and afraid. Gasps were heard throughout his audience. Some of the men had hands over their mouths. Dragons were widely considered to be a bane of humanity. Most people believed this loathing to be caused by the beast's ferocity and cruelty. Personally, I think it was just an excuse for humans to collect on the vast riches that dragons accumulated. People in the inn began to whisper. Many glanced at the hero, appearing excited. A group of men got up from their seat, walking over to him. I smirked. Or, well, as much as a sword can smirk. Being asked to defeat a dragon was of the highest honor. Matching your strength against one was likely to end up with your body in ribbons or as a pile of ashes. The hero would have to face the disgrace of rejecting such a laudable quest. Not even he could be stupid enough to agree to the peril of it. Right? Right? God damn the bastard. The hero accepted the quest, and there was no turning back. Were he to renege, his dishonor would be spread even faster than his fame. The hero was toast. I only hoped that David would be smart enough to run away before he got incinerated. As for me, perhaps life as a dragon treasure wouldn't be so bad. That's not a dragon. We were 2 days' ride from the village, scouring the mountainside for the dragon's cave. A small burst of fire coming from a rocky cavern would have been a nice indicator, but this was just ridiculous. Roiling flame had risen up behind us in a massive dragon-shaped fireball. I suppose from a distance you might mistake it for an actual dragon. Unfortunately for us, this thing was a bit more hot-headed. I'm going to stab that innkeeper, I decided. The hero was just getting to his feet. His horse had dashed sideways when the fire dragon thing appeared, cantering away as fast as his hooves would carry him, and leaving the hero on his arse. I was surprised when the hero managed not to wet himself, and even more so when he was able to draw me from my sheath. I was less astounded when he began to run away, leaving David before the Inferno's wrath. Yeah, like I'd let that happen. It's not like I could move, per se, but I did have some influence over my body. With an impressive act of willpower, if I do say so myself, I forced all of my weight into the tip of my blade. The hero fell to the ground, pulled by my significant mass. It was not luck that I did not break upon hitting hard ground. I said that I was well made. David did not move before the fire dragon, frozen in awe and terror. I feared for his life as the beast of flames moved closer. And then it vanished, leaving only the faint smell of smoke behind. The hero shrieked as the fire dragon reappeared in front of him. It cocked its head-shaped flames, and I could swear the darn thing smiled. The hero ran in the opposite direction, and again the inferno disappeared, only to appear in front of him once more. Each time the hero tried to escape, the fire dragon blocked his way. David seemed to be highly bemused at the game of cat and mouse before us. Still on the ground, I chuckled internally. It was like watching a chicken being chased by the fiery hellcat of Lucifer.
Ciara, that's enough.
An old woman was walking up the hill towards us. At her command, the fire dragon pranced over, sitting in front of her like a dog. They were a strange duo. The woman was tiny compared to the orange-yellow inferno beside her. Despite her advanced age, her long hair remained the color of ink. She wore a long purple dress tied at the waist with a royal blue sash.
"Oh my, I am so sorry," said the woman towards the hero.
He stormed over to her in self-righteous anger, which swiftly turned to confusion as she marched right past him. Coming over to my side, the lady picked me up with gentle, nigh loving hands.
"I'm so sorry, my darling," she cooed. "What if you had been damaged?"
I was too surprised and, all right, I'll admit it, comfortable to feel indignant. Me? Damaged? Ha! It would take a lot more than a fire dragon dog thing to injure me in such a way. The woman began to rock me lightly in her arms. One of her hands was under my hilt, the other supporting my blade. If I had had eyes, I would have closed them in contentment. Still cradling my long body, the woman walked towards David, whose expression was halfway between confusion and amusement.
"Is this your sword?" she asked him, stroking my jeweled hilt.
He shook his head, pointing at the hero.
"It's his."
Said the woman absent-mindedly, striding past him. She was carefully inspecting every inch of my fine metalwork, smiling frequently and letting out the occasional gasp or contented sigh. I guess she was pleased with my craftsmanship, unsurprisingly.
"You are so beautiful," whispered the lady.
"Thank you," I thought. And then, coming to my senses a bit, "Why do you have a fire dragon?"
"Oh,"
she said with a chuckle,
"that's my flame spirit, Ciara. I conjured her 2 moons ago. Beautiful, isn't she?"
Ciara flew in circles overhead, simultaneously playing with her appearance. She created horns and fangs out of tongues of fire. "Yes," I agreed. I wondered why the flame spirit had come to see us.
"Because she sensed a coward," the lady answered. "Ciara loves to scare them."
That made me snicker. I was not startled that the woman understood me. It was pretty apparent from her aura that she was a witch. I liked witches, even the witch who made me. It was nice having someone to talk to. The woman was walking away with the Excalibur mimic. David liked the sword, even though it wasn't its famous duplicate. He always felt comfortable around the weapon, like it was a good friend. The woman was getting farther away. David had seen her talking to, no, with the sword. She was probably a few gallons short of a bathtub. He looked over at the hero, whose mouth would soon begin to collect flies. David shrugged, then began to follow the woman and Fire Dragon. He was sorely in need of an explanation. The hero watched the strange woman leave with his sword, her Fire Dragon flying ahead. A metallic glint caught his eye, and he turned his head. There was a cave he hadn't seen before. It was embedded in the rocky hillside, behind where the dragon had first appeared. In the cavern's mouth was a single gold coin, the thing which had caught his attention. The hero glanced between the treasure cave and the retreating figure in purple. Making up his mind, he set off towards the cave. He could always buy another sword. The amount of gold in a dragon's lair was legendary. The woman in purple looked back over her shoulder. The hero had disappeared. Ciara's cave lay open. She was truly enjoying her time in dragon form. She had even filled it with a hoard worthy of the creature she was impersonating. A chicken strutted out of the cave, clucking lightly. The hen was a golden brown colour, and it carried a single gold coin in its beak. The woman smiled. She really must ask Ciara to stop cursing her possessions. As the night grew heavier, I felt my excitement growing. After many moons away, David was finally coming home. I was looking forward to David's stay with us. I did not have a heart, but my soul was growing mournful without my friend. Before he had left the witch's manor, she had helped David learn to speak with me. He never could do it perfectly without her, but I felt that we understood each other better afterwards. Even with David gone, I was not lonely. The witch spent much of her day chatting with me, especially when mixing her more mundane charms. I knew, however, to be silent when she prepared her intricate spells and potions. I speak from experience. Terrible things can happen when a witch is distracted. David had spent most of the last year in a neighboring country, making a living on the jobs that came his way. Seara had traveled there but 1 moon into his journey, returning with good news. He had found work as a bladesmith's apprentice. During his time with the hero, David had conveyed his liking for me, an interest in sword lore. With luck, time, and some traveling, he hoped to master the art of bladesmithing. Tonight, Seara was bringing him back for a long-awaited visit. The witch had promised to teach him how to weave magic into his forging. The hero never did come to retrieve me. News from surrounding villages said he died in battle, fighting to slay a monstrous and brutal dragon. Tales and songs turned the creature into a 4-headed beast of mountainous size, spewing flames hotter than Satan's hellfire. The dragon was never seen again, and it was assumed that the 2 combatants destroyed one another. The witch kept a small chicken coop, housing several hens and 1 large rooster. One hen was golden brown in color, with golden flecks in its feathers. It was dull-eyed and spent most of its time searching for seeds or avoiding the local rooster. After sunfall, the bards would often raise their voices, telling of the dragon slayer's heroism and bravery. The music would float up to the chicken coop, carried on gentle winds. The golden-brown hen cooed softly on those nights, and all the chickens slept better.
It's a truism of life that one can't choose one's birth family, and the same is often the case for our co-workers. Many of you out there may live or work with people who are selfish, who take others for granted, who are happy to take the credit without carrying their fair share of the weight. If that's the case, then I hope this story brings you a smile. The bully gets his comeuppance. The protagonist moves on to a far better found family. Their hard-working friend has his talents appreciated and is given the opportunity to flourish in their dream career. In your own lives, well, it's not terribly likely that problems will be resolved with a timely chicken transformation, but finding the right people and the right communities can make a whole world of difference to our lives. The Escape Artist family is one of those communities for me. New faces arrive, old friends move on, but the family ties remain, and it's wonderful to share, celebrate and support each other. This one goes out to all of you. Join us again soon. We love bringing you the best audio fiction week after week, but we can't do it without your support. Your donations pay our authors, our narrators, our servers and our staff. Please consider supporting us with a monthly donation through either PayPal or Patreon. You can also review us on Apple Podcasts, request us on Spotify, and consider the stories we publish for award consideration. There are lots of ways you can help. Join the discussion on the EA Forum, forum.escapeartist.net, or EA Discord. Visit on Twitter at Cast of Wonders. Come say hello. Cast of Wonders is a production of Escape Artists Incorporated and is brought to you by editor Catherine Inskip, assistant editors Andrew K. Ho and Carissa Sluss, editorial assistant Amy Brennan, associate editors Cami Adams, Tanya Adelot, Rianne Bowley, Amy Brennan, Alicia Caparaso, Umera Hussain, Somtoa Haysway, Cup Cobb, Amanda Kong, Ray O, Samuel Poots, Rin Richmond, Emma Smales and Denise Sudell. Our community manager is Denise Sudell and our audio producer is Jeremy Carter. Our episodes are released under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. That means you can download or listen to the episode on any device you like, but you can't change it or sell it. Our theme music is Appeal to Heavens by Alexei Nov, available from Promo DJ or his Facebook page. Thank you for listening.